In the corner slab video, you'll learn pressing the slab into a plaster mold, adding texture to the slab, and joining the slab pieces using either beveled or butted edges. This pot was created by using a plaster slab mold to impress the clay, so that each wall of this slab pot has the same impression. Here's an example of a plaster slab mold. This one was used from a technique that's no longer available. Years ago, newspapers were printed creating a cardboard embossed print of every page. The artist could then take those cardboard imprints, cut them into a collage, and pour a plaster mold of the collage. And that's what this artist did. Now every slab that he presses into this plaster mold will have the same impression and words. Unfortunately, newspapers no longer use that technique, so that these aren't available in modern time, but you can create plaster molds from a number of other objects that even your own hand can be used to create a plaster mold of your own hand or face to put on your projects. You can glue things down on cardboard, and there are a number of slab forms available already created for students to use. You notice that the artist is pressing from the center out. This is important because the clay will stretch as you press it into the mold, and you don't want a double image on the clay. So begin at the middle and press out from there. Remove your slab carefully from your plaster mold. And while the impressions may not show up really well on film, they'll show up very well if you use stain when you glaze your piece. The slab needs to set up slightly, and then it needs to be cut square so that it can be used. One way to cut your piece square is again to use the builder square. Mark your 2 dimensions. Then rotate your square to the same 2 numbers. Lay it down, line it up, and then slice again. Now your imprinted slab is ready to begin using. Another way to cut your piece square would be to take some pieces of mat board cardboard, take them over to the paper cutter, and cut yourself some patterns. This is an easy way to cut some really nice square pieces that will line up with each other and fit together. The artist is just using his fettling knife, placing his mat board pattern over the clay slab and slicing directly on each edge. As you pull off the scraps, you can see that you have some nicely cut pieces to use for your square slab project. Slab pieces are now cut out and ready to use. As they come out of the slab roller, they will have one side that is more heavily textured from the canvas blanket and one side that is more fine textured, which is the side that was facing the canvas shim. You can put either side up. The artist may decide to use a number of texture tools. There are stamps that have simply been blocks that have been cut into on a bandsaw, special little rolling pins that will roll a neat texture onto your piece, wooden dowels that have been carved, and you can even take a little piece of plaster and carve it into a pattern. Clay hammers can be used to press and stamp a design into your clay slab. There are special devices that can be purchased that will stamp or roll designs into your clay. This roller even has interchangeable parts so that you can change the texture on them. You can see from this example slab with many impressions stamped and rolled into it that by using a little stain to make the design show up, that you can create a really interesting texture to your piece. The artist is using his stamps now to impress a pattern into his clay, using the stamp, the roller, he's creating a variety of interesting textures directly on the slab. This wooden dowel that's had the ends cut into with the bandsaw makes great stamp designs. After you've finished stamping your design, you'll need to use your cardboard patterns and recut the edges. There'll be some stretching and warping if you just leave them as is. A simple trim around the edges of a cardboard pattern is all that's needed. Holding his knife at a slight inward tilt, the artist is cutting a beveled edge for the walls of his slab pot. These beveled edges will come together like the mitered corners on a picture frame. It creates a very strong and almost invisible joint. Watch again as he does that cut. To change the heat setting on a heat gun, simply rotate that center dial on the side. You may need to blow dry or use a heat gun on your slab to set it up sufficiently to join together. Be really careful, however, that you don't over dry edges. When your parts have reached leather hard stage, they're ready to use to create your slab pot. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, sometimes you'll find that you need to put your slab pieces away for the day and come back and work on them again tomorrow. Take a board and cover it with plastic, and then lay your slab pieces gently onto each other. Make sure the clay's not too sticky or this won't work. Then wrap it up. The next day, unwrap your pieces and you're ready to construct your slab pot. Score and slip those bevel cut edges on your slab walls. Join the two walls together, pressing gently at the seam to join them. Roll out a soft coil of clay that will be smeared into the cross-stitched seam. Always support the outside of the corner while you attach the coil. Use your wood modeling tool to smear and smooth that coil into the seam. When you're done, there should be no cracks or crevices showing, and you will have thickened the corner sufficiently that it will be much stronger. In fact, if you drop a finished pot that has been constructed properly, it will not break on the seams. The seams will be one of the strongest parts of the pot. Sometimes you need to prop something behind the wall, like your slip jar, to keep it upright. Move on to your next wall. Again, score and slip your beveled edges. Cross stitch and smear a coil into the seam. just as you did in the first two walls. Don't forget to prepare the edges of your last slab by scoring the edges of the slab piece and the edges of the box that you've begun making. They look smooth and seamless from the outside.